Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling one of modern history's most pivotal events, the shocking, and I mean shocking, collapse of the German Empire and World War I.
So let's just jump right into it. Here's the big question, the paradox that really defines the end of the war. How in the world did a nation that looked like it was on the brink of total victory find itself completely and utterly defeated just 1 year later?
Okay, so to really get why Germany lost, you've got to understand how totally dominant they looked. I mean, they controlled huge chunks of territory and had just knocked Russia, one of the biggest Allied powers, completely out of the war. Things were looking good.
I mean, look at this. This slide just lays it all out, right? On paper, late 1917, Germany is holding a winning hand. Flash forward just 1 year, and the game's over. They've lost everything. It's one of the most incredible turnarounds in all of military history.
And this quote from historian Holger Afflerbach, it just nails it. After that first push into France stalled out in 1914, a complete German victory was probably off the table. But total defeat? That wasn't a sure thing either. No, that took a series of absolutely catastrophic mistakes.
So you might think this was all about what happened in 1918, but really the seeds of defeat were planted way, way earlier. Germany's path to ruin was basically paved with a bunch of high-stakes gambles that just never paid off.
And when you look at this timeline, you see this pattern emerge. It's like a series of bad bets, each one worse than the last. 1914, the quick victory plan fails. 1916, they just bleed their own army white in these horrific battles. And then in 1917, their big idea to starve Britain with U-boats, all that did was drag America into the war. Every single gamble just dug the hole deeper. And here's the thing you really need to get. These military blunders were happening on top of some really deep fundamental problems. By 1916, Germany was pretty much a military dictatorship. And it turns out generals aren't so great at running an economy or managing politics. They had no real plan for peace, and they couldn't even manage their own allies effectively. Okay, so Russia is out of the picture. For Germany, this feels like it. This is their one last shot. They can finally move all those troops from the Eastern Front over to the West. The plan? One last massive punch to win the war before America could really show up in force. Yeah, this was it. The final, all in, roll of the dice. Operation Michael was them pushing all their chips to the center of the table. We're talking more than 70 divisions, thousands of guns, all crashing into the British lines. It was a massive, last-ditch effort.
And you know what? At first, it looked like it was working. I mean, spectacularly well. They took 75,000 prisoners. They were advancing for the first time in years. For a hot minute, it really seems like they might just pull it off. But, and this is a huge but, that success came at a price that was just catastrophic. In only 2 months, the German army lost over 250,000 men. And the worst part? These were their best soldiers, their elite stormtroopers, the guys they absolutely could not afford to lose. And just look at this number, the final tally. By the time it all fizzled out in July, nearly 1 million German soldiers were casualties. So the final gamble didn't just fail to win the war, it literally broke the German army's back. It left them exhausted, depleted, and wide open for a counterpunch. So, with the German army crippled by this failed offensive, the stage was set for the Allies to hit back. And what happened next wasn't just a retreat. It was a total, systemic collapse, militarily, industrially, and even psychologically. And by this point in the war, the Allies were just playing a different game. Forget manpower for a second and just look at the technology. The tank numbers here, 800 to 20, that's a 40-to-1 advantage. The Allies could wage a modern, mobile war that Germany just couldn't compete with anymore. It was game over. And this table, wow. It shows you exactly what that final gamble cost them in terms of people. In April, at the peak of their attack, they actually had more guys on the front line. But just 7 months later, their strength is almost cut in half, while the Allies are stronger than ever, thanks to those fresh American troops pouring in. But, numbers only tell you so much. It's stories like this one that really hit home. The sheer, raw desperation. Ripping a gas mask off a guy you just bandaged, that tells you everything you need to know about how things were falling apart at the seams. So it wasn't just a military defeat. The whole psychology of the army just
broke. You've got mass surrenders, guys deserting before they even get to the front. They started to believe they were just dying for the Schwindler, the profiteers, and the elites back home. When your casualty rate is over 100%, your unit isn't really a unit anymore.
And it wasn't just happening at the front either. Back home, everything was imploding. Years of hunger and loss finally boiled over. Workers were on strike, sailors in the Navy mutinied rather than go on some final suicide mission, and a full-on revolution swept the country, literally forcing the Kaiser to quit. The entire German state was unraveling.
So you hear all that. Total military defeat, society collapsing. How on earth did the story get twisted into something else? How could anyone possibly claim Germany wasn't actually beaten on the battlefield? Well, it's simple, really. To save their own skins, the top generals, guys like Ludendorff, cooked up this poisonous myth. They said, hey, the army wasn't beaten. We were undefeated in the field, but we were betrayed by the politicians back home. And because the war never actually reached German soil, for a lot of civilians, this lie felt believable. It seemed to come out of nowhere.
But the real story, the one we've just walked through, it's clear. The defeat was total, and it was comprehensive. The army was beaten on the battlefield, the generals gambled and lost spectacularly. The government was a mess, their allies collapsed, there was no stab in the back, the entire structure just caved in.
And that brings us to our final and honestly kind of chilling thought. The stab in the back myth was a complete lie, but it was a lie a lot of Germans desperately wanted to believe. And that lie about how this war ended would become a cornerstone for starting the next, even more devastating one.